Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to review the Moondrop Lan IEM. This is a $40 IEM from Moondrop. If you are in the IEM hobby in any way, they probably don't need much of an introduction. They haven't been around forever, but Moondrop has dropped some bangers of IEMs under $100. As far as really popular, well-accepted IEMs from $20 to $100 or $80, I should say. They make some amazing ones. So this is kind of dropped right in the middle. I'm going to compare it to the less expensive stuff on the market. And, when you spend a little bit more, kind of what differences to expect. Because there's some pros and cons to this. This was sent to me by Shenzhen Audio. So huge thanks to them because as the channel grows, more brands are partnering up. And I'm super grateful that they send it to me. They have made no requests on anything to be said or covered in the review. I'm not telling them anything I've said about it. It won't change what I say. I have pros and cons to this. You will soon see that. But I always want to be honest and share when it's sent to me. So with that being said, let's dive in. So as far as how the box is presented, it's using some artwork. I think a lot of new IEMs are doing that. That's becoming a thing. I like this one because it's pretty subtle. Some boxes are going a bit over the top, but this is still fairly low key. I like the whole aesthetic overall, to be honest, like from start to finish. I like the white packaging. It's pretty simple. The reflective metallic paint ink, if you will. So I'm not going to do an unboxing video. It's obvious I've done that, but I did want to show you how they present it. So you get the IEMs obviously up top. This pouch is fairly basic, and there's a little bit of an odd smell when you first open this one up. It doesn't necessarily smell like what you'd expect. But anyway, it's a thin pouch. It gets the job done. You can fit the IEMs in there along with the cable, and that's about it. But if you're traveling a lot, I might want to consider something a little bit more robust. And as with most IEMs in this price range, you have 3 pairs of tips, different sizes. The medium one is what I'm using now, and then you get a little cable wrap and the cable itself. So I guess on the ear tips real fast, I went with medium because of the 3 that fit me the best. Now, I would consider a spin fit if you really want better noise isolation or a better seal. Mine's sealed fine. I didn't lose a seal. I still got great bass response, but I didn't have the same noise isolation that I did on my less expensive KZ ZNAs, which are like $26. These just let a little bit more ambient sound in. So some people, that's actually a good thing. Maybe they want to hear more of their environment. It wasn't bad. I just felt like the ZNAs did better at a slightly lower price point. Again, it might just be because of the tips they use. They fit my ear better. So I left this detached. This is a 2-pin 0.78 millimeter cable. It's actually a really nice cable. I love this cable because the memory effect is so weak on it. It lays flat. It doesn't resist what you want the cable to do. There's no slider here to, I guess, like the choker slider, if you will, to keep the wires from tangling as easily. There's nothing like that. This little Moondrop piece is fixed on the cable where it splits. But I do like the wire, and if for any reason you want to switch it out because it's detachable, you can always buy any cable you want. And the 2-pin, by the way, for you gamers out there, Antlion has that new Kimura microphone system. With it being a 0.78 millimeter 2-pin option, you can always put a microphone on these too if you're ever looking at using it for gaming. I'll cover gaming specifically soon, but I just wanted to call that out. So overall, pretty straightforward. Let's talk about sound quality and comfort. Now the Lan is using a 10 millimeter single dynamic driver. It's beryllium coated. It's not a full beryllium driver, but they coated it that way. 32 ohm, 120 decibels, so super easy to drive. A potato could drive it. So you don't have to invest in a lot of source gear. I'll talk about what I paired it to afterwards because it works with most things. This is a stainless steel enclosure, the actual case for the IEM itself, and they used an improved paint process. So compared to the Chu, which is basically half the price of the Lan, they've kind of called out a more mature, better process for bonding the metal or the paint to the stainless steel in this case. So I would think the finish will hold up better than the Chu. Some people never had issues with the Chu, but obviously they took that to heart because they specifically called out a better paint process. Anyway, I'm going to put these on because I want to talk about comfort. So they are metal, which means if you're handling them for a while, they'll obviously match the temperature of your hands pretty quickly. If you have these in a backpack and it's freezing cold outside, then yeah, when you first put them in, you're going to feel that coldness hitting your ear, but they acclimate to your ear temperature pretty quickly, so it's not like it's going to sustain that freezing feeling or anything like that. I love the way these fit and feel. I can jog with these. I don't feel like they're going to fall out. I always get nervous when you get to certain metal enclosures because they can get a little hefty. The Odyssey Euclid's an example of that. Those things are like $1,000 planar magnetic IEMs. They have some weight to it and they stick out a little bit. They don't feel as secure with movement. I kind of have to sit still to maintain a perfect seal. These pretty much keep their seal regardless of what I'm doing. So fit and finish hasn't been an issue. I think if the tip was like 10 or 20% larger, not quite stepping up to the large, but just a little bit bigger than the medium, it would have been perfect for my ear, but I'm not losing the sound quality whatsoever. Comfort-wise, for long periods of time because of their shape, as you can see here, the way it's in my ear, it feels like it's right for my ear. I don't feel like there's any hard spot or piece that's out of place on the casing itself. So I really do like the way these feel. So kicking off sound quality, I want to start with the objective side first because that's the measurements. I actually measure all of my IEM. So eventually I'll publish my database online so people can see what I have and how they compare. These are slightly neutral. They're more neutral than the Harman curve, for example. The 2019 V2 IEM curve typically calls for a little bit more bass and a little bit more treble. You know, I guess slightly more V-shaped sound. This is more neutral, but because they also are a little bit darker sounding in most of the upper mid-range and treble, it's not like overly bright, it can sound like the bass is stronger than what the measurements would lend to believe. So as you can see on the curve, it's close to the Harman curve. It's actually tuned exceptionally well. And when you compare it to the Salnotes Zero, the 7Hz Zero, that's a good IEM too. You can see that they're almost neck and neck. What you can subtly see is the bass extension on the sub-bass region is slightly better on the Moondrop Lan. It just digs a little bit deeper with less roll-off, and the treble tuning differs just slightly. There's a hotter spot on the Zero as a whole. It comes across a little bit sharper, a little bit brighter when you put it in your ear. Even though the measurements are really close, they do have a little bit different presentation to them. So as you saw, the bass is fairly neutral. Now, there's a new song that just came out prior to me filming this review. It's called Search and Rescue. It's a rap song by Drake. And the bass notes on that song are amazing because it's almost like two totally different bass notes. You have this mid-range, harder hitting bass that actually gets up to like the 200 hertz region. And then there's a couple parts where it just digs so deep and it becomes apparent that these don't really roll off at 20 hertz the way the Salnotes Zero do. So if I can make a bass comparison to the Zero, it's that when these are asked to execute that subsonic bass, if you will, there just seems to be more heft and power behind that. So that's part of what you're paying for. But what's interesting about the bass, it's not incredibly tight and punchy. So if EQ or if your audio player had a setting called bass softness on 0 to 10, it's almost like you took the bass note and set the bass softness setting to 2. I've never used that terminology to describe bass before, but that was the easiest way I could explain it. It's not really bad because sometimes just taking the edge off can be a little bit more forgiving and it can be a little bit more relaxing. It's not so sloppy that it's not producing the music in a faithful and accurate way. It's just a little bit softer than, you know, something that you get on a more expensive IEM or something that might hit a little bit harder and more cleanly. But it does play really well for most genres because of that more neutral favored tuning. It works in everything from hip hop to EDM to jazz. I don't know if I would use this so much for classical because I think where the lands are slightly falling behind a little bit compared to something a little bit more money. You know, I reviewed the SimGot EA 500s. The resolution of those are insane. But this might be a safer tune for a lot of people. And that bass mid-range treble compared to like resolution and pulling out details or your attack and decay, how fast it can produce a note, how quickly does it stop producing a note. These are just a very natural, forgiving tune and technical performance. I'm not going to say that they're the best at every single thing, but they're one of the most versatile at this price range. I found that vocals actually still sounded pretty close to what I expect them to on much more expensive IEMs and headphones. These aren't really taking that away. I've really just enjoyed these because I can listen to everything even without EQ and be really happy. When it comes to a song, it's not going to add its own spice to a point where it wakes a song up and makes the song sound more special and energetic, you know, the whole musicality thing. But at the same time, if the song is asking these to produce a lot of bass or some energy in the bass guitar, it will do that. If someone is screaming into the microphone and it's a little bit sibilant, luckily this isn't adding any sibilance to it. There's a little bit of a lift right around 7,000 hertz compared to neutral. It's really, really slight, but that's the only thing I think that sounds just a little bit different. Overall, I'm really happy with the tuning on this. I think the detail retrieval isn't quite as good as something in a slightly higher price range, but they're comparable to the Salnotes Zero on detail retrieval. I think the Zero may come across as a little bit more resolving only because the treble is slightly lifted. But the problem with the Zero is sometimes that can be a little too forward for some people's taste. So it's just a matter of preference at that point. And this is all without doing any EQ. So when it comes to gaming performance, I game no problem on these. They're really fun. I don't feel like I'm getting the class-leading best possible gaming experience under $100, but imaging is pretty solid. They have a decent dead center image when it needs to be. And, you know, it's almost like a 3-blob IEM, you know, you have left, center, and right. It doesn't have as much in between, but that's okay. That's pretty normal for IEMs to image that way. So don't expect a super vast soundstage and airiness. They still image well, and honestly, considering the price range, I'm just going to get right to it because I want to talk about the Salnotes Zero. I love the Salnotes Zero. Okay, this is one of the only IEMs I actually bought because at the time I wasn't working with 7 hertz before, and I am now. More to come on that. But these had such a quick reputation. I'm like, well, I have to see how they compare to everything else, and I've loved them. They've been great. They certainly earned their reputation. This is where the whole honesty thing comes in for the review because I want to make sure you make the right decision. Purely for sound quality and value, the Salnotes Zero is still a better value IEM, even now. That's just for the sound quality. Now, what I notice you get when you look at the two, and this is preference too, you might even like the Salnotes Zero more. It looks a little bit more industrial. To me, the biggest difference is I can wear the Lans longer. I like the cable of the Lans more. I think it's a nicer cable. Overall, it's packaged better, which again, that may not mean much to people. You know, the Zero comes in a super basic box, nothing crazy here, and that's fine. It is what it is. But if I were to describe the difference between the two, this is like, if you like everything the Salnotes Zero represents, but you wanted a better wire and similar build quality, to be honest, for the extra $20, instead of buying a wire separately, just get the LAN. Because I don't feel the need to upgrade this wire. I am not a fan of the Salnotes Zero cable, in my opinion. It's just, one, it doesn't look as great with the brown, but I didn't like the memory effect on it and how it wants to stay tangled more often. This has just been very easy to live with every day. It's similarly tuned. They have a similar technical retrieval capability. Honestly, I think a lot of people would think they're in a comparable price range only by the sound quality. But when you look at the packaging, the way everything else comes together, how it's built, I do like that this is more sleek. And I found these to be more comfortable for a longer period of time to wear. So I would use that to decide, I guess, between the two, if one's a better value to you or not. To me, I think this is the closest comparison to it. Now, I tried, just to cover sources real quick in case, because some people are, they always want to know what they're being used. I'm reviewing this too. This is the new Shio from Truth Ear. That's a $40 DAC. It's using like a Cirrus Logic DAC. Actually, this is the same DAC that's used in the $300 Creative X5 DAC headphone amp I just reviewed. And this is much less expensive. It still sounds amazing. So this is what I was using on my MacBook a lot when I'm doing mobile, and I always use my JDS Atom just for testing because it's like my benchmark for everything for the price range. So this is new. This is the X Duo XP2 balanced. Way more power than is necessary for most IEMs. These drive my planar magnetic headphones. I just love this thing because of this volume knob. It's just beautiful. It's in red because I was using it as a USB-C DAC. But I like this one. It works well at higher volumes, but at lower volumes I also use the Quidlix 5K because you can EQ the daylights out of anything. So that's a fun little DAC. This sounds better if you're going neutral for neutral. Something like the XB2 Balanced is a better source. But anyway, that's what I tested it on. That about wraps up the review. I didn't want to script this one too much because I just kind of wanted to share how my experiences went and what I liked and disliked. Again, if someone is a too long didn't watch type thing, this is a comparable audio performance or sound performance to the Salnotes Zero for double the price. So take that for what you will, but I think it executes everything else better than the Salnotes Zero. So I know that's part of where the money is coming from. And I would still prefer to have the LAN because I wouldn't want to keep this with this cable. I bought a different cable. I just not showing it for the review. So when you factor everything in, to me, I would just go with the LAN. So that's up to you. Hopefully you found the review helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a lot more IEM reviews coming very soon, along with some of this cool source gear I just talked about and some more headphones and headsets. So that being said, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.